And hello, welcome along to the Clubhouse preview, Premier League preview. And I'm James Butler, in for Dave Eason, who's currently in South Korea with the student games or something over there. -10 where he is, -5 where I am. And joined today by the two regulars on the show, Paul Robinson and Neil Mellor, in their nice warm houses by the looks of it. How are you two, gents?
Yeah, good, thank you. Slightly warmer than outside.
Yes, it certainly is. Anyway, let's get into the action. We start off with Arsenal against Crystal Palace. And Arsenal are 1.28 ahead of this one. The tie 5.5. Crystal Palace 11 to win this one. Arsenal have kind of stumbled a little bit of late, Paul, though, haven't they? They've not been totally dominant.
No, listen, 3 defeats in a row in all competitions. They started the festive period, the top of the league, and now they've fallen away. Inconsistency, performances, results haven't been there, and that's the test for them. We know. Listen, in games they've played well. They've created chances. There's a talk about hugely the need for a striker in January. We're nearing the end of January, and it's probably one of the quietest windows that we've ever known. Whether people are running scared of the FFP and the financial rules, I think there's only Dragusin that there's been any money exchange hands in a deal. So that's something that Arsenal will be looking at. But yeah, I mean they've stumbled, but you would think that they're going to get back on track in a home game against Crystal Palace.
Do you see, if you're playing for a team, Neil, I mean, obviously last season Arsenal were very, very good, weren't they? And then fell away towards the end. They've had their little bit of a stumble now. Will that be in the dressing room? Will they start to get a bit concerned about their form?
Well, they were never favourites, were they? To really win the title. Perhaps they were thought that they could try and close the gap again to City. Obviously, Liverpool have come back this year. I thought the break came at a good time for Arsenal. Paul mentioned there they'd lost 3 in a row. They were struggling a little bit, and all of a sudden, this break's come around. They've had 2 weeks just to freshen things up a little bit and really go at it. Whereas Palace, they've had a couple of cup games. They've been unconvincing, not great results, been knocked out of the cup in the replay at Everton, and all doesn't seem right at Crystal Palace. So maybe a good game for Arsenal to come back into. Mentioned about a striker. I think Jesus will be back fit. I think that's a big boost for them as well. So yeah, I mean 1.28 is low, but you can't see anything other than a banker. So you've got to get a goal scorer in there. What about a couple of these? Maybe an unlikely goal scorer? Declan Rice. Declan Rice, who comes in the due one category. He's only got 1 goal at home this season. That was against Manchester United in early September. That's 11 games at the Emirates without scoring. Maybe in his 12th game since that last one he scored. So there's like an outsider one to enhance your odds. But an obvious one, maybe not as obvious because he's not been in great form, in all honesty, is it? Saka. You look at the Arsenal attacking players. Maybe Saka, he's got 1 in 7, 1 in 12 in the Premier League. So I think he's better than that. And maybe this break has done him good just to get going again. So Saka and an Arsenal win would be a good one for me.
The 11 on Crystal Palace, Paul, it's big. It's big for a reason, isn't it? I couldn't interest you in that.
Not really, no. It's a coupon buster, isn't it? I mean, it's first game of the weekend, and if Arsenal don't come in here, I think there'll be a few going back in with their accumulators. To be honest, like Neil says, this all isn't right at Crystal Palace at the moment. The speculation continues over Roy's job. They've got injuries, they've got suspensions, they've got players missing, they've got players at AFCON. Yes, they've got good attacking players, Mateta, Olise, Eze, etc. But Ayew's missing. He's at AFCON. There's one in for you if you want a little bit of value. They've scored in the last 5 games versus Arsenal, so there's a little bit of an in if you fancy them to maybe get on the score sheet. But it's a really tough one to really make a case for them at all.
Do you fancy goals in this one, Neil? There's a stat on the screen there that only Liverpool and Luton have scored more goals in the last 15 minutes than Arsenal this season. Only Sheffield United have conceded more in the last 15 than Crystal Palace. So maybe late goals in this.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Palace have won once in 30 years at Arsenal, so you're thinking, I just can't make a case for them at the 11s. Maybe to score, because like the 10 away games this season for Palace, they've scored in 9 of them. So they have had that goal threat, but the players missing are 2 key. I mean, Ayew, I'm not a big fan of him. He's away. Olise's out. Eze came off the other night, but we think he'll start. There's too many key players that are missing for Palace in an attacking sense for me. So Arsenal to 0 is one that I would like, and 2-0, 3-0, maybe even 4-0. I think Arsenal really sort of make a statement this weekend to say, don't rule us out of this title race just yet.
Well, if you fancy both teams to score 2.26, which is quite big, So the compilers certainly don't fancy Crystal Palace to notch against Arsenal. First game on Saturday. Let's get into the score predictions for this weekend. And we'll start off with the score predictions then. We'll go to Neil first. And we are... Neil, I think you're leading, aren't you? On the WhatsApp group, you keep crowing that you're doing well.
Got a big advantage at the moment. Paul's got a lot to do to close that gap. He needs a big 2024.
Paul,
can you do it?
Yeah, well, listen, if it was going on games predicted, not just the 3 points for the correct score, people might look a little bit differently.
Are we going to have some kind of fair play kind of tribunal on this? The rules are wrong. Anyway, let's get into the...
Nottingham Forest, you know the rules when you start the game.
Fair enough. Arsenal against Crystal Palace, the game we just spoke about. We'll start with you, Paul Robinson. What's your score prediction for that one?
Listen, it's comfortable. I know we just did the pre-match preview, but looking at the notes that I've got, Arsenal the least carded team in the Premier League. So don't go on cards, but they get the most corners. On average, they have 7.9 corners a game. So there's a little bet for you. There's an in for the Arsenal game. Arsenal and corners. But I think it'll be comfortable. I don't actually fancy Palace to score, even though they have in previous meetings against Arsenal. 3-0 Arsenal.
3-0 to Arsenal then for you. Neil, what's your score prediction?
Yeah, I think the break would have done Arsenal good. They'll get back at it. Palace aren't in great form. I don't think it'll be a hammering, but I think it'll be a comfortable home win. I'm going to go for 2-0 for Arsenal.
So 3-0 to Paul, 2-0 to Neil. Brentford against Nottingham Forest is the later game on Saturday. We'll start with you, Neil, for that one.
Yeah, Tony's back, isn't he? And Brentford have been in awful form. They really have, knocked out of the FA Cup as well. As for Forest, they scraped through in their replay against Blackpool. All's not well at Blackpool. I think this looming FFP over the heads is going to deflate everybody in the squad and the football club. So I fancy Brentford to win this one. I've gone for a 2-0 win. 2-0
to Brentford. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, for all the same reasons, I've got Brentford to get back on track. Tony coming back is going to be huge for them. The goals that he brings, obviously. We've seen that he's been scoring goals away at the training ground in his warm-up games, if you like. I'm like Neil, I think it'll be a home win, but I'll give Forest 2-1 Brentford.
2-1 to Brentford for you. Next game, Sunday, 2:00, Sheffield United against West Ham. Paul Robinson.
Yeah, it's one for West Ham to get back on track after their disappointment in the FA Cup. Sitting sixth in the Premier League, they're playing against a poor Sheffield United side. Don't imagine this is going to be a classic. 1-0 West Ham.
1-0 West Ham. What about you, Neil?
Tough to call this one. It really is. I think West Ham have got some key players missing, maybe too many. And this is a game where you're thinking they could slip up. They did slip up in the FA Cup away at Bristol City. They'll look to respond. It's now or never for Sheffield United. I'm going to go for them to nick it 1-0.
Bournemouth, Liverpool is Sunday 4:30 kick-off. Your team there, Neil. Do you see them winning this one?
Away win. Come on, the Redmen. I think 10 players are missing. I think you have to acknowledge that for Liverpool for various reasons. Bournemouth were flying before the break. I wonder if that break maybe just disrupted that momentum. I'm hoping it has. I think it'll be close, but Liverpool will win. The same scoreline as the League Cup game they went there this season and won. 2-1 away win.
2-1 away for you. What about you, Paul?
I've got exactly the same written down. I think Bournemouth are obviously in really good form, but I think Liverpool are just strong enough to go there and get the win. Do I change it because it's the same? I've got 2-1 written down. I'll go 2-0 Liverpool. There you go, just to be different.
Could that be the difference this week? We'll find out, won't we? Final game, and we'll start with you, Paul, on this one. Brighton against Wolves, which is the Monday night fixture.
Well, listen, Brighton are good, aren't they? There's one thing you get with Brighton is goals, scored 38, conceded 33. They're always a good watch. They play the game the right way, if you like. And I think they're, against the Wolves side, who have been really impressed under Gary O'Neill. I think they're missing a few of their better players, if you like. Struggling for number 9, like he quite openly said in his press conference the other day. So for that reason, I think that Brighton will win 3-1.
3-1 to you. Neil?
I think it'll be a good game. Yeah, looking forward to this one. Brighton absolutely it'll be open. I think both teams will score. Really impressed with Wolves. I wonder how much it took out of them having extra time before this game. Not ideal. But I'm on the Brighton win as well. I'm going to go for 3-2. Good game.
3-2 to Neil then, Brighton against Wolves, which is our final game of a little mini week. 5 games this week in the Premier League. Into the action then, Brentford against Nottingham Forest, which is the game Saturday at 5:30. And we've got Brentford in the market, 2 for them to win. The tie is 3.5. Nottingham Forest are 3.8. We'll start with you on this one, Paul. Brentford have Ivan Toney back, which is a big addition to their team, like a new signing. I saw him, though, on his interview the other day where he was saying he can't wait for a big move. He's doing all this. I thought, I was watching that thinking, if I'm a Brentford fan watching that, I'm thinking, oh, thanks a lot, Ivan. We just kind of stood by you while you've been suspended, and now you're talking about moving to a top team.
Yeah, but let's be honest, everybody knows that anyway, don't they? I mean, it's no hidden secret that players at that level at clubs like that, he's a wanted commodity. He is going to go on, he will play in the Champions League, he'll play for bigger clubs. Is his honesty refreshing? Let's look at it that way. You know, that let's not sit there and say, you know, I'm really grateful to Brentford, I'm going to stay here for the rest of my life, which it would be a complete lie. You know, he probably is really grateful for Brentford, the way that the club have stood by him and everything they've done for him in his time where he's been out. But he's been punished for something that he did wrong. So, yes, the club have stood by him, he'll come back. And it's no secret that he will eventually leave Brentford. From a Brentford fan's point of view, like you say, I'd be disappointed if it was now in January, because I think he does owe the club something. I mean, you know, he owes them for what they've done, for the way they've stood by him. Stay there till the end of the season, and at the moment, looking at it realistically, keep him in the Premier League. You know, the club they're in a worse run of form since they've ever come into the Premier League. They're really struggling for goals, struggling for points. Stay there till the end of the season, keep the club in the Premier League, and then go at the end of the season. From a Brentford fan's point of view, from Tony's point of view, if the opportunity comes now, I think he might be gone.
There's a PR game a little bit, Neil, isn't there? Though kind of you can, everybody knows that Ivan Toney wants to go and play in a big team and win trophies, but you've got to kind of keep your fans happy, haven't you, at the same time?
What club wouldn't stand by him? I don't understand that argument. The lad's worth 80, 100 million pounds. They're not going to sack him because of what he's done. Yeah. Absolutely going to pay his wages. So if everyone's going to be saying you should stay loyal, there's no loyalty in football. Ivan Toney wants to play in the Champions League. Brentford are not going to be in the Champions League. Yes, maybe his wording could have been better, and he is grateful for what's happened at Brentford. Brentford fans have had an unbelievable centre forward. He's now 27, getting to that point in his career. He's got to be moving now if he does want to fulfil those ambitions, and he's not going to be short of offers. You know, there's going to be some big clubs sniffing about for him. So yeah, I do not get the argument about the loyalty at all, because he's such a big asset for them. I think it's good for Brentford. He comes back into the team. He's going to be hungry to score goals, finish on a high, and this will turn Brentford's form around, which has been absolutely horrendous. Brentford are going to be getting into a relegation battle, and maybe his goals might just lift them the momentum, certainly, and get a few results. He may well leave in January, and that would be a big blow for Brentford. But I think his return will be huge. I think the fans have been made up, regardless of what's been said. There is no loyalty in football. Ivan Toney wants to play Champions League football. Let him go and play Champions League football. He's going to bring in 80, 100 million for Brentford eventually.
He's going to be the centre of attention, isn't he, Paul, when he runs out there, whether he starts or whether he comes on as a sub. But Forest have won their last 2. In the Premier League. Could they slip under the radar here? They're a half-decent price at 3.8 to win this one. Yeah,
they're a decent team, Forest, in recent weeks since Nuno's gone there. I mean, the thing that Forest have had, the problem they've had all season before Nuno went in, is scoring goals. They've scored 24 goals all season. 7 of those have come in the last 3 games. So that shows you the upturn that they've had. Yes, they're a decent side. They'll pull themselves away. And actually, the points deduction that could potentially be looming over them could really hurt them. You know, do they take their eye off the ball? How does the manager approach that? Look at Sean Dyche and what he's done at Everton. He is the ideal manager to have in that situation. The togetherness, the drawing the dressing room together, and the us against them mentality. How does that affect Forest? We'll see this weekend. They've got players missing. They've only had 3 clean sheets all season, which isn't good. Away from home, that they do generally struggle. I think it'll be a tough one for Forest this weekend. We'll be watching Forest carefully to see a reaction of what the off the field situation, how that's affected on the field.
Neil, Ivan Toney, we talked about already, but would you back him to score? He's obviously a quality player, but you've played. If you've been out that long, you might have played training, you might have practiced, you might have done all the rest of it, kept yourself fit, but match sharpness might not be there.
Maybe he did play a practice game, didn't he? And he scored a hat-trick. I think the adrenaline will be there, the buzz to be back out there, and he's a top centre forward. I think with Forest injury problems, they have a lot out. I really do fear for Forest. You know, if there are odds for relegation at the moment, I'd be getting on them now. I think they're in big trouble with what's coming for them with FFP. So yeah, I think I look at this and think Toney back, and I'd back him to score. I think his last goal was actually against Nottingham Forest, wasn't it? That was his last goal. So he scored 3 in his last 3 home games.
Yep.
I know there's been a bad. This lad knows how to score, and Forest know he's going to be a big problem at the weekend. So Tony to score in a Brentford win, I'd be all over that.
Tony is 2 to score, so it's just basically double your money for even Tony to find the score sheet, to get on the score sheet on Saturday. I mean, in terms of where you see this match going, then Paul, where's your money going?
Difficult one to call. It's us been trying to predict where both teams are at, because, like you say, Brentford in a really poor run of form. We lost at Wolves in the FA Cup replay. 5 losses in a row in the Premier League before that. We're expecting a reaction. We're expecting Ivan Toney to have an impact. Whether he will or not, we don't know. We've got 2 teams here, and we're looking at Nottingham Forest trying to predict how they're going to react to the FFP regulations, to what's happening off the field. It's a really tough one to predict, actually, because Forest are, they're up and down this season. Brentford have been awful. Their home form was good. They've only had 3 wins in 10 at home. We're trying to presume that Brentford, that we know of past, will have a reaction and they'll get back to winning ways. And it's a really tough one to call, but I think there won't be that many goals in this. But I like both teams to score, and Tony on the score sheet at 2s. I think that's a really good price because he's going to be hungry.
Both teams to score in this one, yes, is 1.79. Neil, you got even Tony at 2 to score. You got Brentford at 1.92 to win. Which one would you prefer there?
I think Brentford to win. Yeah, I do really fancy them. I have to say that they've scored in 9 of the 10 home games this season. Whilst it's been poor, they've still been managing to do that at home without Tony. I just think Tony back is a massive boost. And Forest are really struggling for players out. And both teams played in the replay during the week. I think Brentford came out with more credit than certainly Forest did in their one, whilst Forest won it but scraped through against a League One side. So, I'm on Brentford. I think that's really good odds. I do think that Brentford have been really poor before, obviously, the cup games, but I think this is where they get back to winning ways in the Premier League.
Saturday, 5:30, you can catch all the action here on Clubhouse TV. Let's get into our next game then. Sunday, 2 o'clock, Sheffield United against West Ham. Sheffield United 3.33. The tie is 3.33. West Ham are 2.22 to win this. And Paul Robinson, start with you. Sheffield United haven't been great, have they, this season so far? They've got an unwanted record potentially around the corner. They've conceded 49 goals already this season. They could become get into an unwanted trio of teams that have conceded 50 in just 21 games. Their defence has been poor, but obviously new manager, everything else, they seem to have just tightened up a little bit.
Listen, looking at it, they're not good enough. They're not good enough to stay in this league, and they're at the bottom for a reason. The players that they've got, yes, they've got in the Premier League, and you could half argue that the squad was weaker than what they came up with. Scored 15, conceded 49. It's the worst in the league. They've been beaten 8-0. They've been beaten 5-0 twice. So defensively, they're porous. They're letting too many goals, and that tells you why they're at the bottom of the league as to where they are. They lost away at Man City, lost at home to Luton, which was a big defeat. Won in the FA Cup against Gillingham, a game that he probably didn't want to lose, but didn't really want the manager because his focus is on staying in the Premier League. 7 points from safety. I mean, is it too big a gap already? Or is it a perfect season to be a Sheffield United, Burnley and Luton fan with the looming points deductions? I mean, they could really get out of jail by getting one of the lowest totals in the Premier League. It's
a good point that, Neil, isn't it? It's not a bad season to be down the bottom end there if you're not one of the teams that are suffering, because there are some poor teams down there, and there are teams being hamstrung by deductions as well.
Yeah, I reckon Sheffield United would have had a big lift knowing that Forest are going to get hit with some points. I'm not sure about the Everton situation. I don't think Everton will get any more points than they have done, but Forest certainly will. So that could give them a big lift, thinking one of the bottom 3 have got a great chance of getting out. But Sheffield United need to start picking up points at home as well. They did beat Brentford at home, didn't they? Threw away the one against Luton, the last home game. But this is where the most realistic chance for Sheffield United to get a point has to be at home. And this is a good time to play West Ham. West Ham have got injuries to key players, Bowen, Paqueta. You're looking at, they've struggled to score anyway. They don't really attack, they play in the counter-attack. They may get a goal from set piece, West Ham, but they've had a lot of criticism for the style of play. The 0-0 against Brighton was one of the most, it was a poor display, and it was painful to watch for West Ham fans. Brighton should have won it, but that's the style of play that they're at the moment, and that's where the criticism's coming. Great position in the league. They've obviously got European football as well to look forward to for the second half of the season, but they are not good to watch. And when you've got key players missing, it's going to be even worse. So this is going to be a painful watch if anyone's going to the game. But this is a chance for Sheffield United to beat West Ham. Under 2.5. I think that's a good bet. Under 2.5. You just don't see many goals in this one. Whether Sheffield United nick it, whether West Ham nick it, one goal could be the winner in this one. I think it's going to be Sheffield United, though. What about Ben Brereton? Here you go. Ben Brereton Diaz. He was at Villarreal on loan. Question for you. See who gets it right. He played 20 games for Villarreal. How many goals did he score over there? Prolific at Blackburn.
It wasn't a lot, hence the reason he's come back.
Well, how many did he get? Because it might surprise you.
I'm going to go 3.
2.
0. He hasn't scored.
There you go.
But he might get himself a goal for Sheffield United. I think that's a good signing for them.
Well, he's come back to solve Sheffield United's goal-scoring problems.
There you go.
Well, Neil's obviously proven that he's not going to be doing the match preview and the marketing for this game because he's not looking forward to this one. Are you looking forward to this? I mean, David Moyes is doing a good job at West Ham, but this is not the greatest match to look forward to, is it, Paul?
It's one of them, isn't it? If it was in your back garden, you might not even open the curtains. This one on the build-up for it. But I mean, yeah, they don't play the most attractive style of football. Hence the reason that the West Ham fans are all split on David Moyes' future. But you know that you'd be realistically where they are, the 6th place in the Premier League. They're competing in Europe yet again after putting a European trophy in the cabinet, and they're competing for European places while playing in Europe. I mean, in all honesty, on their budget and where they are, every club has a ceiling. West Ham's ceiling is about where they are. I don't know where any other manager could take them forward without better players and a bigger budget. I think he's done an incredible job there. But results like Bristol City away in the FA Cup and performances like that with players missing are not going to help him. But I think West Ham, they're functional. They do a job. They're a very good, well-drilled team. And I think they've got better quality than Sheffield United. I think they go there and win. But like I say, it's not a pretty one.
I'd have to agree with that, Neil. West Ham at 2.22 looks like a decent enough price on the outrights.
They're going to have to respond and play better than they did at Bristol City. You know, a very average Championship team. And let's be honest, that was a chance for the West Ham to try and win a bit of silverware. They won one in Europe, but an FA Cup run would have really been possible for them this year. So that was a bad result. Sheffield United slightly better than Bristol City, you could certainly argue. They have to respond. But the key players, it's a big thing for West Ham. They've got key players missing, which makes me think the only way they're going to score is from a set piece, whether it's a Ward-Prowse delivery, whether it's a centre-half going up. So that could be a good option, whether there's a bet for a set piece. But yeah, Sheffield United aren't going to score more than one, are they? So, and that could be enough, though. It could be enough because of West Ham's players missing.
Unders on this game is maybe worth a look then, considering what you've said. Under 1.5 is 3.1 on the Asian total on sportsbet.io. It's a game to avoid by the sounds of it, according to Paul and Neil then, as Sheffield United take on West Ham Sunday at 2 o'clock. Taking on Liverpool Sunday 4:30. Bournemouth 4.25. The tie 4.2. Liverpool 1.73. Joined by Paul and Neil to look ahead to this one. And Neil, Bournemouth haven't got the greatest of records against Liverpool, but they did win this fixture, I think, last season. Is this a game that you'd be a little bit concerned about? This is top of the form table. Bournemouth have been in exceptional form in recent times. Liverpool, though, top of the Premier League.
Yeah, I've got to say that's great odds for Liverpool. It really is. I think Bournemouth, yes, have had a good run, and they are top of the form with Liverpool. I thought the break came at the wrong time for Bournemouth. Absolutely flying. The momentum was with them. Now they've got to pick themselves up and they've got to go again. And what a tough one to start with. I mean, where they are in the league, they're well clear of relegation trouble. So they have less pressure in that sense, playing with more freedom. I always said I thought they were playing for the manager, which they have been doing. They can make it difficult for Liverpool. There's no doubt about that. And last season's game was 1-0, like you say. That was on the back of Liverpool beating United 7-0. Liverpool missed a penalty in the game, missed a couple of big chances. Liverpool are missing 10 players, which is a big blow. But Liverpool do have the firepower. They've got 3 from this 4, which are going to cause Bournemouth problems. Luis Diaz, Gakpo, Nunez and Jota. And there's goals there, isn't there? And I just don't think Bournemouth will outscore Liverpool in this one. So 1.73, I would be all over that one.
Liverpool top at the moment, Neil. your team, obviously. Are you confident? Can they win the title this season?
I think they need a little bit of luck. I don't think the injuries are helping at the moment. I mentioned about 10 players. I reckon you could put 6 or 7 of them in your starting lineup. The fact that Trent and Andy Robertson, 2 of the most creative players, still aren't fit. They need them back soon. Matip, one of them, another injury. Missed Thiago for a lot of the season. Szoboszlai's been absolutely superb. He's out injured for this game. Hoping he'll be back for Chelsea and Arsenal, 2 big Premier League games around the corner. And Salah, the best player arguably in the Premier League. Maybe a little underrated, because when you talk about best players in the Premier League, he doesn't really get a mention, but he's been absolutely outstanding. He picked up an injury at Egypt. He'd be missing this game anyway, but it's whether he can get back for the run in. Liverpool are back at the levels they want to be. It's just whether City can go on one of them runs and nobody can catch them again. But yeah, Liverpool are definitely in the mix this season to ask questions in that title race. But injuries are a big factor. Got to try and get some players back fit.
Liverpool are in the mix, Paul, but Bournemouth have been in exceptional form. Areola, it was laughed about a bit at the start of the season, wasn't he? Why they appointed this guy, but he's really turned it around. They've been on stellar form. They are top of the form table in the Premier League, so there's no easy games against Bournemouth at the moment.
Listen, they lost against Spurs, but before that it was 4 wins in a row, and the manager has been under huge pressure because of the results at the start of the season. But listening to a lot of people now and stuff that people are saying about the manager, it was always going to take time to get his methods across. It was always going to take him time to put his ideas into this team. And you listen to what some of the players have said, they've bought into it, they're doing exactly the way that he wants to play. And the way that his team's set up, the way that his teams play, he's going to leave a few big teams with bloody noses this season, the way that they're playing. Listen, I'll say straight away, I think Liverpool will win this game, but Bournemouth at those prices in the form that they're in, there'll be a few people that'll be looking at that thinking, yeah, I'll have a bit of that, especially at home. Liverpool, like Neil says, a lot of players missing, but they have got a lot of quality. When you name that front line, like you look at those players, then yeah, they will cause Bournemouth problems going forward. There's always a goal in Liverpool. But Bournemouth with Solanke in form, player of the month for December, 6 goals. There is a huge case for Bournemouth, and I think that's a big price for them at home.
Yeah, Solanke hardly notched at all when he was a Liverpool player, did he? But he seems to have really got himself into the groove with Bournemouth. Would you be tempted with anything pro-Bournemouth in this one, Paul? I mean, Liverpool at 1.73, I'm sure will appeal to quite a few people out there.
Right, listen, I'd be tempted, absolutely, with Bournemouth. Like I said to you, at that price, I wouldn't be putting him in my ACCA, but I'd be having an outside bet at 4.25 at home. The way that they're playing, 6 wins in 8. Semenyo, Otara are out there at the AFCON. Sinistera, Clivert, Tavernier, the way that they're playing, the goals, the assists. Saw them at Spurs, they probably deserve more at Tottenham than they got. Like I said, at the outshot, I think Liverpool will win this. I won't be putting Bournemouth in my ACCA. Liverpool will go in the ACCA. But as an outside bet at 4s, there's a way in with Bournemouth and Solanke.
I was looking at Paul there. I could see Neil shaking his head in the corner of my screen. You're very pro-Liverpool here, aren't you?
I think we need to settle down. I mean, Bournemouth have won 3 games at home all season. To Burnley, who pretty much everyone's beaten, Fulham, who've been horrendous away from home, and Newcastle, who had all them injuries. So they've not had a big result at home. So them odds reflect that. I wouldn't be nowhere near that. A draw would certainly be possible. But yeah, I think we have to remind ourselves, as good as Bournemouth have maybe been in terms of the form, they really beat a top side. So that needs to be reminded. The fact they've had the break as well, and the momentum has gone. And Liverpool chasing this title race, they've had a little refreshing break themselves. There's firepower there, so I'm on Liverpool definitely. And then a goal scorer wise, who do you want to get in the goal scorer wise? Darwin Nunez, 1 in 16, definitely needs to improve on that one. Maybe he's due one. I saw Luis Diaz in the same restaurant as me 2 days ago. Maybe that's a sign, Diaz to score.
If we're using that as a betting principle, then I don't know if that's very got much credence to it.
I believe Luis Diaz eats Nando's.
Sometimes you see a little sign, you're thinking Diaz, absolutely, he's looking happy. 1 in 10 he's got, so maybe Diaz he's been back at it last couple of games, in all fairness. So maybe Diaz or maybe Jota's a top player, by the way. He's come back, he's looking good. So Jota's more clinical than the other strikers fit at the moment, and maybe he would be the obvious one. But I'm going Diaz to score just because I saw him in that restaurant the other night. His bill was more than mine.
Well, if Luis Diaz has been inspired by seeing Neil Mellor in McDonald's, 2.4 for Luis Diaz to score any time in this game. What about you, Paul, for your best bet in this one?
Yeah, so I think there's a way in with both teams to score. Hard not to back against Liverpool. But listen, like I say, the Bournemouth, they're a good price. But I'd go with both teams to score and a Liverpool win.
Both teams to score in this one is available. It's quite skinny, 1.5 for both teams to score. The compilers obviously fancy both Bournemouth and Liverpool to hit the back of the net as they play each other in the last game on Sunday. Final game then of a reduced Premier League calendar this weekend. Brighton taking on Wolves Monday 7:45 kickoff. You can catch all the action here on Clubhouse TV. Brighton 1.63. The draw is 4.2. Wolves are 4.75. Let's start with you, Paul, on this one. Brighton. Again, Wolves haven't played. There's a stat on the screen, coming up on the screen when Matteo presses the button, that this is Wolves' first match in the Premier League this season. We've had to wait all of this time until Monday for them to kick off in the Premier League. Only Portsmouth and Manchester United have actually started their Premier League calendars later than that. Wolves have had to kind of bide their time, but they were in exceptional form towards the end of 2023. Can they kind of rekindle that?
Well, we're in the middle of the strangest winter break that isn't really a winter break that we'll never see happening again in this form. I mean, it's just hasn't worked, has it? I mean, it's been
it's
a really
bizarre, isn't it? Yeah.
You can have a winter break, but if you've got an FA Cup replay, that kind of changes things, and you don't get it. And if you're West Ham, you don't have a break at all. It's been a really strange winter break. I haven't certainly enjoyed it. I think the idea was right to give clubs a whole week off if you can, but it just hasn't worked because certain clubs haven't had the time off. We won't see it again, and we won't see it again in this form, I don't think. But Wolves, like you say, they've had a bit of time off, going to a Brighton side who, like we always say, score and concede. They play good football, Brighton. They're a really good watch, balancing European football and challenging for European places again. But Gary O'Neill, for me, I tipped them at the start of the season to be down there, to be in the relegation places. He's really surprised me. The way that they play. I've been to Molineux 3 or 4 times this season, been really, really impressed with how they set up. They've got a clear identity. They've got a clear way of playing. Yes, they're missing Hwang. He's been outstanding this season and the best goal scoring form of his life. They've got Neto back. He's already said the need for a striker, that he wants Gary O'Neill at Molineux. But they're looking to be a solid mid-table Premier League team. When everybody, myself included, when the manager left, they were quite open about the finances, that there isn't any money to spend. They looked like relegation fodder at the start of the season, but they're really not.
Yeah, Wolves are 4.75 here, Neil, to win this one, which for a team in form, albeit a while ago, that looks like a decent enough price. But Brighton's a tough place to go, isn't it?
Yeah, they've only lost once at home this season, haven't they, Brighton? That was to West Ham. I think the break would have done Brighton good. You know, they've had a few injuries themselves, a few players out. They've had 2 weeks off. I don't think extra time would have helped Wolves during the week. You know, that was a tough encounter against Brentford, which they came through. I think Wolves have proved a lot of people wrong. You know, Paul mentioned it himself. I was similar. I was thinking they'd struggle. But absolutely, Gary O'Neill's done a brilliant job. Neto's been out a while, but they've maintained really good form. He's back in contention. I really like Cunha as well. So I think this is a tough game for Wolves. I really do. And obviously the odds are reflective in that. So I'd fancy Brighton because Brighton are a good side. I think it'd be an exciting game. I think Wolves score. Both teams to score over 2.5. But I think Brighton just about edge it. If you're looking at goal scorers, what about Danny Welbeck, former teammate of mine, believe it or not? Hasn't scored at home this season. He hasn't scored at home since playing Wolves last season. That was 6-0. Brighton have beaten Wolves 4-1 already this season away. So Brighton have had some big wins against Wolves. I don't think it'll be as big as that, but Welbeck to get himself his first home goal since Wolves last season and a Brighton win for me.
2.9 any time for Danny Welbeck to score in this one. 4 goals and 2 assists, I think, in the last 8 games for Danny Welbeck. So he's in fine fettle. Paul, for you, the best bet in this one. Do you see this just as a Brighton win or anything else you can give me?
No, I see it as a Brighton win because, like Neil says, they are good at home. But I like the both teams to score because that's what Brighton throw up for us most weeks. They're always a banker for both teams to score. And the way that Wolves play, they got beaten heavily by Brighton earlier on in the season. Gary O'Neill's very tactically aware. He's very tactically clever. He won't play the same way as he did earlier on in the season. They won't be as open. They won't be as expansive. He'll try and be defensively more solid, which will frustrate Brighton. But I think Brighton have got the quality to find those holes, to pick them apart and to get goals. But like I say, don't rule Wolves out for a goal. For me, it's a Brighton win, but it's a guaranteed both teams to score.
Both teams to score seems to be, as Paul said, happens every time. You can just put your money on it, on Brighton, Neil, and both teams to score lands because they concede, but they score, don't they?
I think what you have to say about Brighton is if there's a team you want to watch in the Premier League as a neutral, watch Brighton. They really are a good side, and okay, they've maybe had a couple of disappointing results, maybe drop points. They'll have a go. They'll have a go. They'll put players forward. They'll play some attractive football, and this will be a good game to watch. So, and to be fair to Wolves, they've been decent as well, surprised us. So this will be a good game to watch. Goals in this one, just got to shade it for Brighton. They've been so strong at home, they really have. So Brighton to win it, but both teams to score.
I've said on Clubhouse TV that if I was coming down from a different planet and had to pick a team to support in the Premier League, Brighton would probably be it, because they just play open football. They do concede. They're involved in good games, and they're a joy to watch, aren't they? We'll see how they get on when they take on Wolves. Monday night, 7:45, the last of our games of this rather elongated week of Premier League action. Right, the talking point for this is with Paul being a goalkeeper, Neil being a striker. We had an incident in one of the games recently where Burnley were denied all 3 points because Adebayo backing into the keeper Trafford, and the goal was given. When earlier on in the season, we've seen, it just seems to me like a goalkeeper is brushed on the cheek, he goes down, and keepers are protected and the goals are disallowed. Our kind of talking point really is, are goalkeepers overprotected or underprotected? Paul Robinson, I'm hoping you two actually have very different opinions on this one with your respective careers behind you. But Paul, should keepers be protected? Are they overprotected?
Listen, I think our opinions will be very surprised. They're very similar. My goalkeepers union card got revoked a long time ago when I started working in the media, and you have to be honest. Listen, I think they are overprotected. You've got an opportunity in the box where you can use your hands. If James Trafford makes a decision to come out there like he did, he comes out and he cleans out the striker. Listen, first of all, I think he's misjudged the flight of the ball. You watch it, you don't watch the incident, you watch the flight of the ball. He's nowhere near it. The ball's about 6 foot above him. He's completely misjudged it and ran into the striker. If in the modern day game, if it's your team, you're looking for a foul. I think Rob Edwards handled the situation. The Luton manager after the game spoke really well, saying, "Look, it's one of those that if it's for you, you want it. If it's against you, you feel hard done by." It's one of those situations where it wasn't given on the field, and it was quite nice to see that the VAR didn't overturn it. Are goalkeepers overprotected as a rule? Yes, I think they probably are, because once their arms go up in the air, any type of nudge or any type of hit on the body, it does throw you off balance, and it does look a lot worse than the contact actually is at times. That particular incident, I don't think it was a foul. I think, like I say, the goalkeeper misjudged the flight of the ball. He was as much running into the striker. If he makes the decision to go, you go, and he's got the ability and he's allowed to go and clear everybody out. If his eyes are on the ball, he comes, he catches the ball, and he goes through everybody and takes the ball with confidence and at pace and goes through everybody. He didn't do any of that. And as a goalkeeper, you are overprotected because you're allowed, A, to do that, and 2, if you do get it slightly wrong, incidents like that occur, and free kicks are generally given.
The only sort of comeback on that, Paul, was Nana very early on in the season, in one of his first games for Manchester United. It wasn't given as a foul, but there was a lot of talk about him coming out and clearing away some players out of the way to go and get a ball. And it should have been a foul and a penalty. So you can't have it both ways, can you? A keeper is either...
I'm talking about to get the ball. If you go, I'm not talking about move, get out of the way. I'm talking if you've got your eyes on the cross and you're looking at the ball, the goalkeeper's got the ability to pick his line of judgment, go for the ball, regardless of what's in front of him, attack the ball. And as he's catching the ball, he goes through bodies, he goes through players. You don't have the ability to physically move players out of the way, no, because that would or should result in a penalty.
What about you, Neil? Do you think they're overprotected, or do you think they should have some protection around them?
A bit of both. I think they have been overprotected. I mean, a big frustration has always been with set pieces or corners when the ball goes into the box and the ref just blows his whistle. You're thinking, you just can't blow your whistle. It's because you're not going to do that for a penalty. It's always more often for the defensive side. I actually thought it was a foul, and the reason being, I felt as though the Luton centre forward never had control of the ball. So I thought it was like an off the ball incident where he sort of obstructed the goalkeeper. So for me, I thought he intentionally blocked him. So I could see it being more of a foul than not. But I agree with what Paul's saying. If the goalkeeper comes, he's got to make sure he gets there. But I was surprised it did count the goal, because Like I said, I did think it was a foul. That was my initial instinct, because the centre forward has played the goalkeeper rather than the ball. If he's got control of the ball and the goalkeeper's trying to come through him, then no way is that a foul. But for me, the Luton lad never had control of the ball, and he's blocking the goalie off rather than trying to play the ball. And that was why I thought it was a foul. But yeah, I mean, it's good from an attacking point of view in terms of the goalkeepers might get less protection. But for me on that one, I did think it was a foul.
I mean, I was sitting in this chair when that game was on, and we called it as a foul on here, and then we were really surprised when the goal was allowed to stand. But kind of the thing that frustrates me, Neil, is the inconsistency, I guess, is that you see an incident like that in the Burnley game where the attacker effectively gets away with it, but then another game, as I say, brushed on the cheek, keeper goes down, and it's the referee blows up and says it's a foul on the keeper. VAR. Protection of keepers. It's the inconsistency of the kind of how the rules are applied to me that's frustrating.
There'll always be inconsistencies because football's subjective. One person will have an opinion and another person will have a different opinion. That will never change. So let the referees referee the game. If that referee thought it wasn't a foul, it's not a foul. If you thought it was a foul, it's a foul. It's one of those things which can go your way. It can't get your way. VAR doesn't need to get involved because, again, if one person out of 10,000 people disagree, VAR is not needed because it's subjective. It's one where everybody agrees. It's like a blatant one, like a Maradona, and we keep referring to that one where it's like, how have you not seen that? I don't think VAR is needed for that. The referee's seen it. He's in a good position. He's gone, that's not a foul. Don't need VAR. Do not need VAR for that. He's called it, no foul. It's one of them things. During the season, you're going to agree with decisions. You're going to disagree with decisions. That's football. Let's not try and seek perfection because it doesn't exist, and we will never all agree with the decisions.
It's the clear and obvious thing, isn't it, Paul, I guess, on that. But I saw earlier on, when there was the big talking point about David Raya coming into Arsenal and taking over from Ramsdale there. They had the cameras on them in the warm-up, and so the goalkeeping coach had a kind of big pad on him, and he was kind of saying to David Raya effectively as Ramsdale was crossing the ball in, come and get this ball, come on, muscle me out the way and come and get this ball. I mean, I've never been in goal, never played in goal in my life. Probably Neil hasn't either. You know how this works. The judgment on when to come and when not to come is the key here, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we use the pads just to recreate the contact that you're going to get in the box. You're not going to go hitting each other in training because we are quite soft as much as we pretend that we're not. They don't want to go colliding into each other in training. So they put the pads there to try and recreate the bodies and the contact that you're going to get in the box. But it's all about the flight of the ball. It's about judging the flight of the ball and coming and picking your route through. It's like a horse sometimes when you coming around the final bend of the finish line. A jockey's got to pick his way through to get to where he wants to be. He's got to pick his route. And sometimes a crowded penalty box is like that. You've got to pick your route, judge the flight of the ball. And sometimes your decision-making is a split instant decision that you're not going to come for the ball because you can't get there. But you've got to time your run and your jump that you can go bigger and higher than everybody else. Final question on this one, and before we finish for this week. You've got to be a bit mad to be a keeper, don't you, Paul? I know what you mean.
So, I mean, kind of the thing is like the last pick goes in goal in the school playground. But I mean, you chose to do it. You chose to get the gloves on and put yourself in the firing line there. That got to be a bit crazy. No, I didn't. I chose to be a striker. There's only one thing that stopped me being a striker, and it was about a stone and a half at that time. Goalkeepers playing well, not good enough footballers. That's what everyone says. But now we are. We're now a different breed. We are good footballers. We're centre halves, we're sweepers, and goalkeepers. Gone is the myth that the last pick goes in goal because goalkeepers have to be centre midfielders now. Thank you very much, gents, and we'll see you again next week.